There's a box in your closet you haven't touched in years. You know exactly what's inside. An old photo album, a broken watch, a birthday card signed in handwriting that no longer exists. Every time you see it, something inside you hesitates. You say, "Not today," and quietly walk away. It's just a box, isn't it? But it's not. It's a memory, a chapter, a person, a version of yourself you're not ready to say goodbye to. As we get older, the things we keep begin to carry more weight. Not just physical weight, but emotional meaning. That shirt hanging in the back of the closet isn't just fabric. It's the last one you wore to church with your spouse before they passed. That stack of letters isn't just paper. It's love that once was. It's your history, pressed between envelopes and ink. People might tell you to declutter, let go, downsize. But they don't always understand that letting go of an object at your age can feel like letting go of a part of yourself. This isn't about being messy or stubborn. It's about being human. Today, we're going to explore why letting go after 60 feels so different, and why that's not a weakness. It's a sign of a life fully lived. 1. It's not about stuff. It's about stories. At first glance, it looks like clutter. Stacks of books you haven't read in years. A chipped mug that doesn't match anything else. A drawer full of keys that don't open anything anymore. But if you look closely, really look, you'll see something else. You'll see a story. That chipped mug? It was from your honeymoon in 1972. You remember the tiny cafe in New Orleans, the way he made you laugh, the way the coffee tasted different that day. The books? You bought those when you first retired, full of dreams of quiet mornings and time to finally breathe. Those old keys? You don't even know what they open anymore, but you can't let them go. Because once they meant something. They meant you belonged somewhere. When you're over 60, things are no longer just things. They become memory holders, anchors, silent witnesses to decades of your life. You see, we don't keep objects because we're attached to the object itself. We keep them because they remind us who we were when we first held them. Because we're afraid that if we throw them away, we might lose that version of ourselves too. So when someone says, "Why do you still have all this stuff?" What they don't see is that this isn't about being disorganized. It's about preserving the story of a life. And when you've lived a long, beautiful, complicated life, that story deserves to be honored. Holding on doesn't mean you're stuck in the past. Sometimes it just means you're remembering who you are. 2. Letting go feels like losing identity. It's easy for someone else to say, "Just get rid of it." They see a closet full of old clothes and think it's just clutter. But they don't see what you see. They don't feel what you feel. Because to you, that closet isn't just full of things. It's full of versions of you. That blue dress? You wore it the day your daughter graduated college? The worn-out flannel shirt? That was his favorite. You still catch your breath when you hold it? The jacket with the little tear under the sleeve? You wore that when you got your first grandchild in your arms. Letting go of these things doesn't feel like tidying up. It feels like saying goodbye. And when you've spent 60, 70, even 80 years building a life, how do you say goodbye to the parts that made you who you are? This is where decluttering becomes something deeper. It's no longer about space. It's about identity. When you retire, your days change. When your children move out, your home feels different. When you lose someone you love, the silence grows louder. And in all those changes, the things you keep around you, the dishes, the sweaters, the books, the photographs, they become reminders that you were here, that you mattered, that your story is still alive, even if some chapters are behind you. It's not just the fear of letting go. It's the fear of forgetting, of being forgotten, of becoming invisible in a world that's moving fast while you're slowing down. We don't talk about that part enough. But here's the truth. Letting go does not erase who you were. You are not made of things. You are made of memories, of wisdom, of love given and received. The dress may fade, but the moment lives on in your heart. The photograph may yellow with time, but the feeling it captured, that joy, that pride, that presence, it's still yours. Always. You don't have to let go all at once. You don't have to be ready today or tomorrow. But when you are ready, when a part of you feels strong enough to say, I can keep this in my heart instead of my drawer, that's when letting go becomes powerful, not painful. Because letting go doesn't mean erasing yourself. It means creating space for who you're still becoming. Yes, even now, even after 60, you are still growing, still unfolding, still deeply, beautifully alive. And you don't need every item to remember who you are. You are still here, and that is more than enough. 3. The brain doesn't like change. Letting go sounds simple, doesn't it? Pick up the item. Decide yes or no. Keep or toss. Done. But for many of us, especially after 60, it's not that easy. You hold an old cookbook in your hands, pages stained, spine cracked, and you suddenly remember the kitchen you once stood in, the smells, the laughter, the sound of children running down the hall, and your hand freezes. Because you're not just holding a book, you're holding a memory. And your brain, your incredible, loyal, protective brain, doesn't want to lose it. You see, the older we get, the more our minds resist change, not because we're being stubborn, not because we're set in our ways, but because the brain is wired to seek safety in what's familiar. Familiar things, old sweaters, photos, furniture, routines, they create a sense of security. They tell your brain, you've been here before, you're okay here, you know this. And when life starts to shift, retirement, loss, health changes, children moving away, the brain clings tighter to what's left, the familiar, the known, the stable. Even if that stability comes in the form of clutter. There's a term in neuroscience called cognitive anchoring. It means that our brains latch onto certain objects, sounds, or environments to stay emotionally grounded. So when you hesitate to give something away, you're not just being sentimental. You're holding on to a mental anchor, something that keeps you steady in the waves of time. And here's something else. Your brain remembers through objects. Unlike a computer, we don't file memories by date and time. We file them by emotion, by sensory connection. That Christmas ornament isn't just decoration. It's your mother's laugh, your child's first snowfall, or the warm feeling of being together. No wonder it's hard to let go. Even more, as we age, the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation becomes more sensitive. This means that saying goodbye, even to small things, can feel heavier, more personal, more painful. It's not weakness, it's biology. Letting go feels like change, and change to the aging brain often feels like loss. That's why even positive change, moving to a smaller home, simplifying life, decluttering for peace, can bring unexpected waves of grief or anxiety. But here's the good news. The brain can learn at any age. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt, doesn't stop after 60. It just requires a little more compassion, a little more patience, and a lot more gentleness. Instead of forcing yourself to purge, try asking softer questions. What memory does this item hold for me? Can I honor this memory in another way? Would a photo or a story preserve it just as well? Is this item supporting who I am now, or only who I once was? Because when you approach letting go not as a task, but as a conversation with yourself, your brain feels safer. It doesn't panic. It begins to understand. I am not losing everything. I'm simply making room. Room for rest. Room for clarity. room for the present moment to feel just as sacred as the past once did. So the next time your heart tightens as you try to part with something, pause. Not to avoid the change, but to gently remind your mind, you are safe, you are loved, and you don't need everything you once held to hold on to who you are. 4. When decluttering feels like grieving. Sometimes, letting go doesn't feel like cleaning. It feels like mourning. There's a quiet ache in your chest when you hold that jacket he used to wear every Sunday. You can still picture him standing by the door, arms stretched out, asking you to fix the collar. And now, years later, the jacket still hangs there, untouched, because touching it too long feels like touching the absence. And you're not sure your heart can bear it. This is where decluttering becomes something no one warns you about. It becomes grief. Not always the loud kind, the kind with tears and funerals, but the soft, slow kind, the kind that visits when you're alone in the attic, the kind that hides inside old birthday cards and photo frames, the kind that sneaks up when you open a drawer and see handwriting you haven't seen in a decade. Grief isn't just about losing people. It's also about losing roles, routines, moments that will never happen again. It's about losing who you were in a particular season of life, the mother of young children, the wife who made coffee for two, the host who used that tablecloth for every Thanksgiving dinner. Every item from that life becomes a thread in the fabric of your story. And pulling on even one thread can feel like unraveling the whole thing. So when you try to declutter, when you stand in front of that closet or that garage, it's not just about what to keep or toss. It's about confronting the past. It's about deciding which parts of your story you're ready to carry forward and which ones you're finally ready to lay down. And that decision, it hurts, because grief is never just about what's gone. It's also about what it meant, and the deeper the meaning, the harder it is to say goodbye. But here's something important. Letting go of an object does not mean letting go of a person. Donating a coat doesn't erase a marriage. Giving away dishes doesn't erase the meals, the laughter, the love. Throwing away a card doesn't erase the memory of being loved. What you shared, what you lived. It's not in the item, it's in you. Sometimes holding on to the object is comforting. Sometimes it becomes heavy. Only you can know the difference. So if you're standing in that moment, holding something in your hands, unsure if you're ready, know this. There's no rush. There's no timeline for healing. You're allowed to take your time. You're not just sorting through stuff. You're tending to your heart. And that deserves patience, care, and compassion. Grief doesn't always ask to be fixed. Sometimes it just wants to be honored. And maybe in honoring what was, with a word, a prayer, a tear, you'll find the quiet courage to say, "Thank you for everything. I'm ready to let you rest now." That's not forgetting. That's not giving up. That's love, in its most grown-up, grace-filled form. Number 5, what you keep keeps you. Take a moment and look around your home, not just with your eyes, but with your heart. Everything you see, every object, every photograph, every folded towel, every trinket on the shelf, it all holds something. Some things hold love, some hold loss, some hold stories that lift you up, and some quietly weigh you down. We often think of keeping something as a neutral act. If I don't need it, I'll just put it in the back of the closet. But here's what we rarely talk about. What you keep keeps you. It holds your energy. It shapes your day. It speaks to your mind even when you're not listening. That box in the corner filled with unopened mail? It whispers, "You're behind." That outfit you haven't worn in a decade, tucked deep in your drawer? It says, "You're not who you used to be." That shelf of dusty souvenirs? It asks, "Remember when life felt more full?" And slowly, quietly, these items begin to write the story of your present, not based on who you are now, but based on who you used to be. But what if you could shift that? What if, instead of letting your things define your life, you began to define what things belong in your life? Here's the truth. You are not the same person you were 20 years ago. You have grown, you have endured, you have changed in ways both visible and invisible. And that means you're allowed, more than allowed, to ask yourself, does this still reflect who I am today? Does this support the life I want to live now? Does this bring me peace, or does it pull me back into something I've already outgrown? You don't need to become a minimalist. You don't need to empty your home to feel light. You just need to choose. Choose what stays, not because you're afraid to lose it, but because it still has meaning, still brings joy, still speaks to who you're becoming. And as for the things that no longer serve you, you can let them go, not with guilt, but with gratitude. Say, thank you for being part of my journey. You helped me once, but I don't need you to carry me anymore. That's not rejection. That's recognition. That's honoring what was and choosing what is. Because the more intentionally you choose what you keep, the more room you create for rest, clarity, and peace. You deserve a home that supports who you are now, not just who you were before. And when you give yourself permission to let go of what no longer lifts you, you're not losing anything. You're gaining space. You're gaining lightness. You're gaining freedom. And maybe most important of all, you're gaining the ability to walk into every room and feel like you belong there. Fully, completely. Today. 6. Decluttering can be healing. We often think of decluttering as a chore, something that must be done, something that feels heavy, tiring, maybe even overwhelming. And yes, sometimes it is. But what if it could be more than that? What if, instead of treating decluttering like a task on your to-do list, you treated it like a moment of healing? Because healing doesn't always look like a breakthrough in a therapist's office. Sometimes it looks like sitting on the floor with an open box and a quiet heart. Sometimes it looks like sorting through a drawer and suddenly smiling through tears. Sometimes it looks like folding a blanket that once covered someone you loved and whispering, "Thank you." Decluttering, when done gently, is not about throwing things away. It's about listening. Listening to what your home has been holding. Listening to what your body feels when you touch an item. Listening to what your heart is ready to release or ready to hold closer. When you slow down and approach your space with care, decluttering becomes a kind of conversation between your past and your present. You might pick up a photo and feel a pang of sadness. That's grief surfacing, not to hurt you, but to be witnessed. You might find an old scarf and suddenly feel warm inside. That's memory, reminding you that love never really leaves. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to finish in one day. You don't need to follow someone else's rules about how many things to keep. You just need to honor what feels true for you. Maybe you keep the letter because the handwriting feels like a hug. Maybe you let go of the vase because it belonged to a time you've already grown beyond. Both choices are valid. Both are acts of care. Healing happens when we make space, not just in our homes, but in our minds. And the more space we create, the easier it becomes to breathe, to rest, to welcome in lightness. Many people describe a kind of emotional lifting after they declutter. Not because their home is now perfect, but because it reflects how they want to feel inside. Peaceful, clear, intentional. And that's the quiet gift of this process. It's not just about getting rid of things. It's about getting closer to yourself. So if you feel ready, even just a little, try beginning with something small. One drawer, one shelf, one memory at a time. Let each object guide you. Let your breath stay steady. Let the silence be gentle. And if tears come, let them come. That's part of it. That's healing too. Because in the end, decluttering isn't about loss. It's about alignment. It's about choosing what supports your spirit and gently parting with what no longer does. And when done with love, decluttering becomes a powerful reminder. You are still here, you are still becoming, and you deserve to live in a space that reflects your strength, your story, and your soul. 7. Turning letting go into a ritual. There's something sacred about saying goodbye when it's done slowly and with intention. In many cultures, we have rituals for all kinds of endings: funerals to honor the departed, ceremonies to mark milestones, even quiet dinners to say farewell. But what about the small endings? The ones that don't come with music or flowers? The ones tucked inside a box in your closet or folded in the back of a drawer? The truth is, letting go doesn't have to be a cold, silent act. It can be a moment of ceremony, of pause, of meaning. You can turn decluttering into a ritual. Before giving something away, hold it gently in your hands. Say a few words, not out loud unless you want to, but in your heart. You were with me when I needed you. You served me well, and now I'm ready to let you go. That's it. Simple, quiet, but powerful. Because when you give something your attention, your gratitude, your blessing, you're not just discarding an object. You're closing a chapter with care. You can even create your own rituals. Some people light a candle before they begin sorting to create a calm, respectful space. Others play soft music that brings peace or memories. You might choose to write a letter to a person the object belonged to, someone who's gone, but never forgotten. If you're letting go of something that once belonged to a loved one, consider taking a photo of it first. Keep it in a memory folder with a note about what it meant to you. That way, the memory remains, even if the item moves on. You can also share your stories. Tell a grandchild about the old necklace before you donate it. Explain where that mug came from and why it once meant the world. In doing so, you pass down more than an item. You pass down meaning. You're not throwing something away. You're giving it a new purpose. You're setting it free to serve someone else. And when you approach letting go this way, as a ritual, not a reaction, something begins to shift. The process becomes softer. The grief becomes quieter. The space you create becomes sacred. Because here's the thing, we don't just form emotional attachments to people. We form them to the symbols of our lives. The coat we wore when we first fell in love, the recipe card with our mother's handwriting, the blanket that held a newborn we rocked to sleep. And just like with people, we need closure. We need a moment to say, "You mattered. You were part of my life, and now I release you with love." That small act, done with intention, turns pain into peace. So next time you feel the weight of letting go, pause, breathe. Create a moment that honors what that object gave you. Because it's not about tossing something away. It's about acknowledging that it meant something. And now, with a heart full of memory, you're ready to let it go. Not because you're empty, but because you're full. Letting go is not the end of your story. It's the quiet return to yourself. Every drawer you clear, every item you release, you're not losing who you were. You're making space for who you still are. Because home is not just where your things are. It's where your peace lives. It's where your soul can exhale. And maybe, after all this time, decluttering isn't about saying goodbye to the past, but about coming home, to the present, to the simple, to the version of you who no longer needs to carry it all. You are still here. You are still becoming. And you deserve a life that feels light, clear, and yours.